In our last lecture, we dealt with the question of what a movie hero looks like. Does he look like Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, or like Her Majesty's best Secret Service agent, James Bond? Well, as you might remember, this is what a movie hero looks like. The hero is represented by the blue square surrounded by greenness and redness, the colors of two opposing parties. They define your narrative in its entirety, be it good versus evil, as in any classical epic, be it rich versus poor, as in a social drama, be it love versus duty, like in a romantic novel. Those worlds, of course, are composed of people. And that's how you approach the problem of finding the right characters for your story. You look at them like they are connected pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Each of them represents a specific aspect of the one side the character is on. For instance, if we make it about James Bond, the two sides are represented by Her Majesty the Queen, even if she never appears in person, and the supervillain who wants to take control of the world, respectively. You also have characters who might be positioned more balanced in this force field of a power struggle. There is the villain's love interest who falls for the charms of Mr. Bond, but there might also be another Bond girl who commits treason and delivers him to his enemies. There are M and Q, and often there is a number 2 on the side of the baddies. Also, you might find shady characters like a local ambassador or assistant who turns out to be a turncoat, and so on. This gives you a full range of the two sides. So when designing your characters, try to cover as many aspects as possible. Don't leave any holes in between, and don't cover any part twice. This technique will give you a picture that feels complete. I like to compare that approach with this image by M.C. Escher. There is a clear distinction between two worlds, the dark one and the light one. There are no holes in between the characters, and no motive is repeated. Let's compare that with the cast of the classical western Stagecoach from 1939 by John Ford. In this movie, John Ford sends a group of Americans through dangerous Indian territory. This, of course, serves as a metaphor for the early struggles of America to become a nation, and it reflects on the social narrative of the time. You have the two ladies representing upper and lower class. You have the true American spirit embodied by John Wayne, who else? You have tin-horn gamblers, corrupt bankers, alcoholics, merchants, fools, and representatives of law and order. In novels, there is something you could call the I perspective. Like in the famous novel Moby Dick, the narrator's first sentence is, "Call me Ishmael." And on he goes. "Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world." Making it quite clear that the narrator is speaking about himself as opposed to a God's view perspective, where the narrator is all-knowing and constantly making decisions about what next to reveal to the reader. Therefore, in a novel, from the I perspective, every encounter is tainted by the narrator's subjective opinion. So, for example, if he's a racist and doesn't like Jews, Jews will be described with disregard accordingly. So all the characters in the novel are representations of ideas and opinions which the narrator holds. They are ideas personified, all of which are struggling within his soul in some sort of mortal moral tug-of-war. For instance, our hero might encounter a person who is the incarnation of duty, maybe a war veteran who gladly gave his right arm for his country, next to another person who is constantly making demands, feeling entitled to getting stuff, always complaining, always looking for other people to blame. Then again, there is somebody who really cares. Of course, this person, too, is nothing else but an incarnation of the narrator's own kindness, even if the narrator ridicules this person as being weak and somehow despicable, which may be rooted in the central character's egotism. Enter some big ham, noisy, preposterous, maybe a Hollywood movie star. Also, we can have a personal trainer of sorts, somebody who encourages the narrator to change his life for the better. Hampered by this drug addict friend of his who invites him to a drug party. But later he meets a, say, poor street vendor who gives him an unexpected lesson of humility, which our hero is too proud to take to the heart. And the heart is personified by the actor who plays the story's hero, constantly being dragged and pushed by his inner forces. Thus, side characters are outward projections of inner conflicts, like in this excerpt from the series Game of Thrones.
If this news is true, and the Lannisters conspire against the throne, who but you can protect the king?
They murdered the last hand. Now you want Ned to take the job.
The king rode for a month to ask for Lord Stark's help. He's the only one he trusts. He swore the king an oath, my lord.
He spent half his life fighting Robert's wars. He owes him nothing. Your father and brother rode south once, on a king's demand.
A different time. A different king.
This way of depicting character traits leads us to a notion that I picked up from William Blake's Illuminated Books and Prophecies. Blake calls such entities emanations, which are allegorical figures representing single character traits of the central character, whom we might call the host character. Meet Luke Skywalker, the host character from the iconic Star Wars trilogy. What are his traits? Is he good? Is he bad? Is he brave? When we first meet him, we don't know yet. He seems to be a frustrated, maybe a bit naive farm boy on a desert planet, but nothing more. We learn about his strengths and weaknesses when we watch him interact with his own emanations. As for once, there is the projection of the fair princess, who is an allegory for all that's noble inside Luke. But then there's also the Dark Lord, an emanation of all the aggression and frustration Luke experiences when seeking adventures. But that's not the whole story. Each of these two emanations also acts as a host for further emanations. Like the fact that there is still something good within Darth Vader, after all. He once used to be a noble Jedi Knight like his former master. Yet, on the other hand, he is working for an evil top-down technocracy embodied through the master of the Death Star, Grand Moff Tarkin. And what about the princess? Sure, she too is looking up to the noble Jedi Knight Obi-Wan. But as a woman, she prefers bad boys, like this space pirate, who, in turn, is a nice guy, which you can tell when you watch him interact with his furry buddy Chewbacca. But every time a bounty hunter shows up, we are reminded that Solo, after all, is a criminal. Suppose we connect these emanations like so. We get a topsy-turvy tree. I christened that tree the emanation tree, which is an excellent way to start from a blank page. The emanation tree is nothing but a tool that helps you come up with characters to begin with. It is not a depiction of a strict rule. Once you are in the course of writing your screenplay, your characters will develop a life of their own. As you get to know them better, you can easily cut some branches off or grow additional ones, for the emanation tree is not necessarily symmetric by design. So, when you start designing your characters from scratch, you might want to define the opposing worlds first, and then put some unlucky person right in the center. From there, you can either choose the Jigsaw puzzle approach, or the emanation tree, or a balanced mix. Let's look for a few examples. In Japanese director Yasujiro Ozu's masterpiece, Tokyo Story, we meet an old man and his wife who leave their small town to visit with their children in Tokyo. The children, though, prove to be rather ungrateful, and they send their parents off to a spa. The only gentle person who treats them with respect is their daughter-in-law, whose husband went missing during the war. Also, we can observe a clear distinction between the two worlds: modern selfishness versus traditional kindness, the collapse of the nuclear family in Japan being one of the core issues Ozu constantly deals with. Compare that to Ingmar Bergman's famous classic The Seventh Seal, in which the hero plays a game of chess with death himself. There you have people who embrace life on one side and those who embrace death on the other. This, too, is a mix of Jigsaw form and emanation tree. Even terribly violence-driven filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino use this kind of approach to come up with a well-balanced cast. In his smart but drastic movie Inglourious Basterds, the worlds are clearly established as the Nazis and the Resistance. At the center of the action is a young woman who runs a Nazi cinema but secretly works for the Resistance, who plans to kill Hitler during a movie premiere. Her primary motivations are her pain and her desire to get revenge, portrayed by Christoph Waltz and Brad Pitt, respectively. Moreover, her function as a double spy is also incarnated like is her flirting with the enemy. And at the extreme ends, we find the root cause to all this, personified by Churchill and Hitler. By the way, my philosophical mentor, Sir Roger Scruton, would strongly disapprove of such revolting movies, no matter how smart they were designed. And the reasons are obvious. While we aim to ennoble people through our art, movies like the ones by Tarantino address a cruel appetite that instead dehumanizes viewers. About the goals for Christian filmmakers, I shall add some more thoughts in upcoming videos. Certainly, Game of Thrones would not have been his cup of tea. He even disliked Tolkien's Lord of the Ring in any form, though he was interested in the Harry Potter phenomenon, and he liked the music by John Williams. And that's it for today. I hope you tune in next Sunday when we'll talk about character traits.